Welcome back to the channel. Today I want to discuss a topic that's near and dear to my heart, the concept of critical thinking. I thought of a scenario that may or may not work well when you're approaching a religious person who's been in a particular frame of mind for a very, very long time. A way to try and broach the subject of critical thinking and how to evaluate whether your beliefs are correct or perhaps they are skewed by bias and incorrect information and so forth. The method is this. Let's pretend that you're some type of fundamental religious group. You're a proponent of a fundamental religious group. And let's say you're Baptist or you're some form of Pentecost. And proponents in those particular sects typically look at the Mormons and the Jehovah's Witnesses as heretical, as completely off the rails, far from God's light, so to speak. So I would approach you and say, what if you were curious about learning more about the Mormons or the Jehovah's Witnesses? What if you were curious just about academically looking at their belief system and learning more about it? What would be your approach? What would be the methods that you would use to learn more about this particular group? Assuming, of course, that you want to know the full story, that you want to know every detail and so forth, and you're not interested in just the simple answers that they will give you. And so would you, as a fundamentalist Christian who strongly believes in the Baptist method or the Presbyterian method, would you go up to a Mormon tabernacle, just knock on the door and say, give me a pamphlet, show me more about your religion, just so I'm aware of it? Well, you could do that, and that would give you perhaps the pros. They would sell you on the best version of their particular belief system. They would sell you on why their particular beliefs are correct. They would give you all the literature and all the books and say, yes, everything that we teach is accurate and it's backed up by scripture and whatnot. And so you would get that side of the argument. Now, let's suppose you wanted to get a little more factual information. You wanted to get the neutral, unbiased version of the Mormons, the Jehovah's Witnesses. Then what would you do? I'm asking, what would you do? Would you go to perhaps Wikipedia? Find somewhere where sources must be specified for any information presented. You would have to provide a neutral, verified source for the material that you present in your Wikipedia article. Great, that'd be a good place to start after that. So you would get the good side of it directly from the source. Then you would get the neutral, unbiased source from a third party. And from that you would see, can we compare what the Mormons are saying versus what the Wikipedia article is saying? Which is providing perhaps the more accurate information? Is there any discrepancies between the two? The third method, the third layer to go to, would be look at the critics of the Mormons, the Jehovah's Witnesses. Again, just for examples, we're picking those. What other information does not compare and does not correlate between the people that have left that particular group? Let's say you go to xjw.com, xmormon.com, and you look at how these former members and their information correlates with Wikipedia versus the actual literature put out by that organization. So you get three sides to the article, to the particular group that you're studying. You see the good, the bad, and the ugly, or the good, the neutral, and the bad. So at the minimum, you should always use three sources, no matter what you're looking into. If you're trying to find out if you should buy a Subaru, if you should buy a Mazda, if you should buy, if you should go with a certain airline or whatever, try to find three sources. Try to find a neutral, try to find the pros and try to find the cons. And then it's your job to make a judgment call and see how do all these line up, which ones agree with each other, and which ones are totally out on third base, just completely out of the game. And the idea is, if you're looking at the Mormons and you see, oh, okay, they have a particular doctrine or a teaching that they don't mention in their literature when they're talking to an outsider. They have a particular teaching that's really, really crazy and weird. They do not provide that to someone who has no experience, who has never been in their particular group. They don't bring it up. But you find that particular teaching, that particular radical mindset in Wikipedia, and the ex-members that are more than happy to discuss it. Then you have a situation where you have to evaluate the information and say, okay, who do I trust in this particular mindset? What is the motives behind the people presenting the information? Wikipedia really has no motives. It's simply there as an encyclopedia. Great. The people that have left, are they bitter? Are they perhaps resentful? Possibly. Does that necessarily mean their information is invalid? Maybe, maybe not. That's something we have to look at and consider, but not necessarily disregard everything they're saying. Look at the literature from the particular religion. Do they have a motive to present a good side? Of course they do. Does that mean their information is necessarily invalid? It does not. But we have to take that into consideration. So again, does the literature presented by the organization seem to correlate with the neutral source and with perhaps the ex-members? And we have to look at what makes sense, what doesn't, what fits and what doesn't. So this is the technique, and this is called verifying the information that's given to you. It is a critical aspect of evaluating what you believe is true, or if what you believe has been perhaps modified over the years or presented in a misguiding light, let's just say. And so this is what I would present to someone who is a, let's say, a Southern Baptist, the crazy wacko Southern Baptist, or the crazy wacko Pentecostals, or any other sect that's on the fringe. And I would say, all right, if this is the method that you think is a good method, if you were going to learn about the Mormons or about the JWs, or about perhaps any of the other radical cults, the Rajneeshas, or some other group that's maybe Scientology that's come up more recently, then if that method works to evaluate this group that you're really have no interest in, it's strictly for academic reasons, you should not be afraid to use this same method of critical analysis on your own religion. And therefore, if we were to go to a Pentecostal group, and I use that as an example because I came out of the Pentecostal movement, and I understand how difficult it is to overcome that brainwashing, then we look at the literature that the Pentecostals present. We look at the arguments that the Pentecostal apologists present, and we say, all right, this is the good side of it that they're presenting. This is particular ideas that they're pushing. Then we look at the neutral source, look at Wikipedia. We look at the information from a neutral, unbiased encyclopedia that would tell us what is the real history of the movement, what is the details of their teachings and so forth, who agrees with it, who disagrees with it. That information is all presented. And then again, we go to, using the same method, we go to the third source, which is the people that have left that group, such as myself and many others. And we say, what stories do they tell? What information do they present? Does that match up with, again, the neutral source or with we'll say the pro side? And from that, we gather the big picture. And the big picture is so vital because the smaller you make your focus, the easier it is to miss perhaps the bigger clues that would let you know what your true focus should be. Many people get caught up in, oh, let's look at the meanings of certain words in the scriptures, and we get focused on the interpretations of a particular verse of scripture and whatnot, when really it's about the context and it's about that greater focus. And many people miss that, and they miss that because they've been perhaps led their entire lives to focus on these minutiae that in the end don't necessarily make that big of a deal. But in the bigger picture, we have to consider all of the evidence. And this is where critical thinking becomes so important, because it's not really about these dogma, these small differences in teachings, but it's about looking at why should I look at, or why should I respect that teaching as a whole. And this is where we have to apply the method, shake out what works and what doesn't. We have to shake out what is true and what is not true, and trust the information that is verified. Find ways to verify the information. We cannot simply go through life saying, oh, we have to believe this because everybody before me believed this, and grandma believed this, and grandpa taught that. We have to reevaluate today what we think we know. Reevaluate today what we think we understood, and start over again. Because as human beings, we're very prone to being misled. It's an unfortunate fact that we have been misled many times in the past. And so it is our responsibility, it is our duty to recommit ourselves to the verification of information, to critical thinking, and to help bring our lives back to the point where we only accept the information that we know is correct, beyond a shadow of a doubt. There can be no middle ground or falsehoods that we just sweep under the rug and say, we'll figure it out later, or we'll understand these things better when we get to heaven. Well, right now is when we need to figure it out. Right now is when we need to establish what is true and what is not. And that is the message I would give to the extreme fundamentalist Christians, and that is, use this method of critical analysis. Identify what is really true about your religion. Identify what is really correct about your religion, and what is not. And don't be afraid to seek those answers no matter where they lead. That's what I did. I think it turned out pretty well. But that's all I got for today. If you have any comments, please leave them below. Like, subscribe if you enjoy the content, and I will see you guys down the road. And do your own research, evaluate, critically analyze, and come to your own conclusions, and never be afraid to doubt. Thank you.